Ho, ho, ho. He's one of the most recognized figures around the world. Children look forward to getting a visit from him all year round. You can't miss him. Big white beard, red suit, sack full of toys, big jolly smile sliding down your chimney. I'm sure you've guessed by now who I'm talking about. The one and only Santa Claus.
Ho, ho, ho.
Today, we have the most special guests in studio. All the way from the North Pole, it's Santa and Mrs. Claus. Hi, I'm Red Younger, and this is It's My Job to Know Yours. I cannot believe that I am sitting here with Santa Claus himself and your lovely wife, Mrs. Claus. Thank you so much for coming out today.
You're welcome.
It's great to see you.
I think this is the first time I'm getting seen and visited by Santa because I'm Jewish. So I feel like I'm going against my, I hope my people from back home are not watching.
You think that's the reason, but I actually checked. You've been on the naughty list most of your life.
I can't disagree with that. That explains the coal that I got every year. I just always thought it was random, but yeah, okay, good to know.
I would fly by and Rudolph would be like, "No, we're not going there."
Good to know that you've been keeping tabs on me. I have it on the naughty list, and I'm not going to apologize for it. Disclaimer to anybody listening or watching: if you believe in Santa Claus, stop watching this episode now. Because we're about to ruin the magic a little bit of the belief. Like, real talk. Do people really, really believe in Santa Claus?
So I think that there are children who do, and there's an age or a maturity level when they don't anymore. And then there are parents and grandparents who they believe in the power of Santa, not necessarily that the iconic character exists for real, but they know what Santa represents and what he can do. And I create memories for people. So that's powerful. So do they believe in that? Absolutely they do. There's different levels of belief. Does a child believe that I'm real and I live in the North Pole? Sure. But grandma believes that I can create something in her house or at their party or wherever I am with their family, and that's remarkable to them. It's a memory that they cherish.
I love that. I really, really do, because at the end of the day, what you're creating is real. You're creating a real feeling. You're creating a real experience and a real environment, and it's less of a character you're playing and more of an experience that you're providing. Being Santa Claus, just literally, we've been talking off camera this whole time, and you're so entertaining and fascinating. Like, the minute that I saw you pull into the parking lot, I was like, oh my God, Santa's here. You were in your sleigh. You had your reindeer. Mrs. Claus was here with you. Hi, Mrs. Claus. How would you like for me to address you guys? Would you like for me to call you guys Santa and Mrs. Claus throughout this episode, or would you guys like to be called by your real names, which is Saint Nicholas and...
I'm happy with Mrs. Claus.
Mrs. Claus. I like that too. You guys came out in your gear today. Well, this is one of the many attires that you guys don for when you're in Santa, and this is what you called your summer Santa.
Summer Santa is how we identify it. Of course, during the holiday season, there's basically one traditional outfit or style that we do, and many professional Santas out there will use different. They may have 5 or 6 different costumes or outfits, whatever term you want to use. But I generally stay with one because I'm brand conscious. I try to create something that's consistent all the time. But in the summer, we do a variety of different things. I would say for matching outfits,
I probably have more summer outfits than I do traditional holiday season. And I think it's the difference of the Christmas card look versus the fun party in the summer, making sure those kids are on track to make the nice list at the end of the year.
Because, like, Christmas is one day a year, but it's like, for you guys are doing this all year round. You guys are Santa, like you're always Santa Claus, right?
Correct.
So even though it's a one day, thing, technically, literally your entire year revolves around Christmas.
So when you look like I look, you don't have much choice.
Okay.
You either are or are not Santa.
You didn't choose the Santa life. The Santa life chose you.
Correct.
Sort of.
Sort of. Yeah, I mean, there's a long story behind that. But in general, any man who has a full white beard, and if he's wearing anything red and he's out in public, he's Santa. And he should know that, too. I mean, there's people out there who portray Santa, who are professional Santas, and they know how to respond to children when they walk up to them at Home Depot or at the mall or grocery store or whatever. And there are others out there that don't respect the fact that they look like something that's iconic. You know, and I almost wish I could grab those guys and shake them sometimes and say, hey, at least, you know, participate in what we got going on here. I mean, at least try to give the child some hope.
I don't know. To me, you look a little bit like a rabbi.
That's the first time we've heard that one.
I mean,
I read a fantastic joke yesterday about a priest and a rabbi. I'm not going to go there, but it was a fantastic.
I mean, you're more than welcome to go there. I'm sure our audience would love to hear it. I would love to hear it.
Priest and a rabbi are sitting next to each other on an airplane.
Uh-huh.
And after a while goes by, and the priest says to the rabbi, have you ever actually, you know, gone against your faith and maybe ate some ham, ate a pork, something like that? And the rabbi said, he says, well, you know, one time I did do it. I had a ham sandwich. And then a while later goes by, and the rabbi says to the priest, he says, have you ever actually gone, you know, against your religion and shared in the flesh? And the priest says, well, you know, one time I did have that experience. And a couple minutes later goes by, and the rabbi says to the priest, beats the shit out of a ham sandwich, doesn't it? So, I mean, you know, there's plenty of jokes out there.
Yeah, Santa Claus is...
Hopefully I got all that straight.
Santa Claus is such a iconic figure. You know, I mean, even though I grew up without it, you know, grew up without Christmas, grew up without participating in it, you know, you can't shelter the idea of Santa Claus away from the entire world. And I grew up very, very, very sheltered. You know, we weren't even allowed to say the word Santa Claus growing up. If anybody who's familiar with Yiddish, because I'm fluent in Yiddish, you know, we weren't allowed to say the word Christmas because it has the word Chris or Christ in it, which was very much against our religion. And so we would call it Kratzmich, which basically means scratch me. And we weren't allowed to say the word Santa Claus, which was, instead we had a nickname, which was Schmatteklutz, which basically means... Schmata is like translated like a rag, and klutz is clumsy. But I don't think it was so much. It wasn't supposed to be an insult. It was never supposed to be.
It can be clumsy.
Sometimes.
But it was more of like the sound effects, the play on words, and it was like the funnier way of saying it. It's like, oh, you know, we're at the mall Christmas time. It's, you know, you schmata klutz. You know what I mean? Like it's a term of endearment a little bit. It's a little bit funny, but getting to be such an iconic character, and you, like you said, you're in character like 24/7, right? You'll be at Home Depot, and kids will come up to you at the mall and run up to your arms and be like, "Hey, you're Santa."
Absolutely.
So you're on at all times.
I don't have much of a choice. You know, if I want to be who I am being, then I have to be Santa. I have to be that character, that icon. It's about branding for our business, really. I mean, if I didn't do it, then I'm not being supportive of what I'm trying to build or what I've built. Put it that way.
As Mrs. Claus, I can be undercover all the time.
Right. If she takes her hat off and takes off this shirt, she's anybody she wants to be.
Right.
But
yeah, well, Mrs. Claus is not as well known, I guess, in terms of like a specific look. I guess. I mean, and I think that do you think that's like a little bit of
So actually, I would say it's helpful. So when we're doing an event, there's a certain age population that are terrified of Santa. He's an icon. Children really look forward to it. It's going to say, we're going to go see Santa. We're going to go see Santa. And the kids are very excited until they see Santa. And it's like, oh my, there's a big man and now there's pressure. And they're terrified. They cower behind mom's legs or, you know, hide their face in their coats or cry. We have a lot of pictures with screaming kids in the shape of a C as they're arching away from Santa. But I find that they warm to Mrs. Claus because she's a grandmother figure. So you can come take them by the hand and we'll wave to Santa. We'll talk about what their favorite cookies are. Do they remember what they brought him last year? And actually, from my point of view, I'll feed that information to Santa too. And so as he engages them from afar, he builds their trust to bring those kids in. So in a sense, I think that's kind of an important role.
Absolutely. At any given time when we appear together, Mrs. Claus works significantly harder than Santa does. And I think any professional Santa will tell you that. Or Mrs. Claus is the one that does all the work. I mean, it's fairly easy to
sit in a big red throne.
Sit in a red chair, have blue eyes, and be fat and talk to kids. It's not that challenging to do. Yeah, I shouldn't say that. It is a challenge to do, but it's a challenge to do correctly. Anybody can do it, but to do it right and be effective and create the memories that we talked about before is a challenge to do. But when you have Mrs. Claus working with you and you have somebody who is extremely talented or works on the same level that you work, it makes Santa's job so much easier. So
he started Santaing in grade school.
Yeah, actually, the first time I did it was in 6th grade.
Because you had this beard back in 6th grade.
I was the chubby kid in school. Big shock, right? And
as was I.
Yeah. Well, the principal and the teachers, they were doing a holiday play, and they came to me and they said, "Would you play Santa?" Sure. And I was honored to do it. And at the end of the play, there were other teachers and parents that had no idea that it was a student who actually played that part. God. They assumed it was a teacher who did it.
Did they put you in a beard?
Yeah, I was in a full gear, and they played the song "Must Be Santa," and I choreographed a dance to that song, and I stood up on stage and I did it.
Which he still remembers today.
I still remember it today. That's from
he was
6th
11.
grade. So that was the first time I did it. And then in 12th grade, my high school had a, I don't know how to explain, we had a daycare center in our high school.
To learn parenting, too.
Yeah. And the principal came to me and said, "Would you be willing to go play Santa for the kids?" And they had a suit and a beard, and I put it on, and I went in and did it. And I didn't do it again until I was about 45 years old.
So this is kind of been your calling your whole life.
Possibly. I mean, I've thought about that. I really have. I mean, I know you say that with a smile, but the reality is that I did establish some foundation for it.
But when he started as an adult, he didn't just wake up one day and say, "I must be Santa."
No, I was actually, Mrs. Claus and I were having a conversation, and she said, "You could be Santa." I looked at her like she was crazy. I said,
"Well, wait a minute.
Right.
It was November, and you were doing the no-shave November thing."
I forgot to shave for a few weeks.
And you wanted to be like the band groupie, right? To have all the following. Right.
Anyway, so we actually had a conversation about it, and I made her a bet. I said, "You'll never find a suit to fit me." I said, "If you find a suit to fit me, I'll do it." And 2 weeks went by.
Never dare miss future Mrs. Claus.
Not only did she find a suit, but it was too big. We had to temper. I didn't own it, so we had to sort of temporarily pin it to make it where I was wearable. You're gonna like this. You want to ask me where she found the suit?
Where did she find it?
My ex-wife's boyfriend had it.
Ooh, I guess she has a type.
Nice.
You can ring the bell for that.
They're actually married now. Fantastic couple. But yeah, he had the suit, and I wore it, and it was really nice, and I wanted to do some permanent alterations to it. So I had talked to him. I went out and bought another suit, gave it to them, and they gave me the one that fit me, and the one that I gave back to him would fit him. He was a volunteer firefighter, so it belonged to the fire company. And they got something that was new. I got something that was older but fit me. We altered it, and I started working from that. And then eventually we found fabric, and we found fur, and we found different accessories, and then we had our own suits made.
Well, I mean, I have so many things that I want to say. First of all, going back to Mrs. Claus and Mr. Claus, you guys are a team. Right. And
Correct.
like, you were giving so much credit to Mrs. Claus earlier, and then I didn't want to skip over that, because the truth is I think that is such a parallel, or comes up so much in society, where like men get credit for something when, they say behind every great man is an even greater woman or something like that. And I love that you guys are here as a team, and you guys work together, because you may be the face of Santa, but in the reality, it's like, she's the one who talked you into it and got you to do this. And you guys really built something so spectacular. And this is why the first time that we have a double, like a duo guest on the show. And I really love that you like saw something in him, you know, that you may or may not have saw in yourself, and you brought that out. So kudos to you, Mrs. Claus, for, you know, doing that, because you have brought, I'm assuming, and from what I know, like so much joy to people throughout your entire career so far. And we're going to get into that in a second, but also I find it very, very surprising that you couldn't find a suit to fit you, because that's kind of what Santa is, right? Santa is known as the big jolly man. Guy. What do they call it? I want to shake my belly like a bowl full of jelly, or something. That's a line.
His original business card said real bearded, bowl full of jelly, jolly old elf, I think.
Right. I mean, they're out there, but I probably wasn't aware of the network of professional Santas worldwide and the resources that are out there for things, what I call supplies. I didn't know these things existed at that time. You know, the only experience that I had with Santa would be one that you didn't have as a child, but that I had as a child. You know, Santa was at the mall or whatever, and you know, I never thought about where did his suit come from. You don't think about those things even when you're an adult, unless you really are interested in the industry.
Yeah,
it would never occur to you where this stuff comes from.
That is pretty much what this entire podcast is based off of, where it's like so many jobs exist, right? People don't necessarily stop to think about people's jobs that don't pertain to them and their lives. And it's like, there is somebody out there whose entire career and entire life is to be Santa Claus every single day. And they have to deal with finding the costuming and getting the bookings and finding a Mrs. Claus and finding the elves and all the pieces that come together with it. And most people don't even stop to think about it. But I find this interesting because our friend Jessie, shout out to you, Jessie, when I interviewed her on the show, Jessie Adcock, she's hilarious. She's amazing. And if you haven't seen her episode, go back and watch it, because that episode was also pure entertainment. But when I was interviewing her, I was like, put it out there. I was like, oh, I would love to interview a mall Santa. And she was like, oh, I have the perfect Santa to interview, you know, call Brian or Santa Claus. And, you know, you guys will get along. Your personalities will mesh. He's hilarious. So I called you up, or you texted me, you know, a few days later, and I was like, oh, I've been wanting to interview a mall Santa. And you're like, ooh, do not compare me to a mall Santa. What I do is so different. And I was like, really? Okay, what's the difference? So explain to me, in your words, what do you have against mall Santas, and how is it different, and why what you do is different from the average mall Santa?
I understand your question, and it's not that I discredit a mall Santa, and it's not that it's so radically different from what I do, but there are some key points which I'll answer you with. A mall Santa is locked into one place for X amount of time for so many consecutive days. And what I do is I go from location to location, and in an average season, I do well over 100 events. So I was a little bit involved in scheduling, a little bit involved in coordination, having some geography skills, some, you know, MapQuest is your friend, that kind of thing. And,
I don't know, these days we use Waze, but I'm sure your reindeer know how to get places.
Right. But the mall Santa job is a job that doesn't require, you don't have to be as diverse as I believe I am.
You're not given the time.
Yeah. And it, you know, to me, and again, no discredit to the people who do it, but it would be boring to sit there and over and over and over basically engage in the exact same transaction. The children are different and the adults are different, but that same exact thing constantly would be monotonous to me. I love the variety of what I do. I love the fact that I'm in someone's home in the morning, and then I'm doing a corporate event in the afternoon, and then I'm in a nursing home, and then I'm doing a charity event, and maybe I'm at a different event or a different house, you know, on my way back to my home. So that diversity and the ability to be Santa, but maybe be a slightly different Santa 5 or 6, 8 times a day, that's important to me because I thrive on that. That allows me to express myself better. It allows me to be who I think I am naturally. And I'm somebody who really appreciates variety. And I've been that way my whole life. I like to do a large number of things. If given 10 choices and somebody says, which one do you pick? I'm going to tell you all 10. You know, that's just who I am. So I like the fact that how I built this business, or how we built this business, is such that it gives me the opportunity to experience a variety of things and do a variety of things.
This is what you guys do, like, full time, correct? For the most part? Like are you?
No.
So Santa isn't an all year thing for you.
It can be.
Okay.
2 years ago, prior to COVID and the pandemic, I actually did work in 7 out of 12 months in a couple different states and in a couple different capacities. But in general, it's November, December, and then there's a significant amount of work in July if you're a Santa who maintains your beard year round, or if you have a quality, fake beard or artificial beard, whatever term you want to use. Those guys can also work in July as well. But many Santas will shave in January and then not regrow until July or August.
But Santa owns his own business. I mean, yeah. Santa owns a used car dealership.
I love that.
I'm a research scientist, so.
Okay, so even though you guys have full commitments to being Santa at all times, it's like, can you make it your full-time job if you wanted to?
Absolutely. There is enough work out there, and there are professional Santas who are making well into 6 figures a year doing what we do. But I'm going to tell you that for every 10,000 men who try to do that, maybe one is successful at it. It's extremely difficult to build that kind of a following and that kind of a book.
But also, a lot of Santas are retired. And so it's a perfect job for a retired person to augment the income, but to have a lot of fun and, really make a difference.
Yeah.
We just happen to be on the young side of it.
Is there like an age requirement of when you can start being Santa? Because I can imagine that Santa, he's an old man, right? Like he's known.
He's timeless, actually.
He is time. Where did Santa originate from? Because I was under the impression that Coca-Cola created this Santa figure. Is that true?
Coca-Cola brought to the United States the image that we know and your viewers know as Santa Claus. But St. Nicholas actually was originated in Europe, and there's a whole backstory to who that character is. And again, like you talked about earlier, it's a little bit of Christianity involved in it, and how this character developed and what he was and what he did. And there's multiple stories of that. Speaking in terms of religion, when people talk about the Bible, there's different ways to interpret different sections of the Bible. And the same thing exists with St. Nicholas. There's different ways to interpret who he was. And then different, and I don't want to use the wrong term, but different subdivisions of Christianity have their own version of who St. Nicholas is, and there's some different names for him as well. But in the United States, in modern times where we live now, without a doubt, Coca-Cola is the reason why we have the white beard, red suit Santa that most people are familiar with.
But Santa carries a sleigh license, and so his real birth date is on his license.
You have an actual Santa license?
And St. Nicholas's birthday is tomorrow.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
What date would that be?
It is March 15th, and I'm going to hand you my sleigh license. I think I'm going to hand it to you.
You are. I pulled you over for flying too fast. But
Claus want to help me real quick?
that is so funny that you guys have official sleigh licenses.
We're gonna find it.
I was actually, because I was researching this. I was doing a little bit of like digging today. Googling different Santa Claus myths and facts and figures, and oh my, International Sleigh Operators License, official seal of the North Pole, Northern Lights Division of Public Safety. You signed Santa Claus, date of birth, the year 270. That's, man, you're old. You look great. Here, if anyone wants to see it.
Toy makers age well, right?
Is that your actual job? Is that what Santa's job is? He's the toy maker?
He's a toy maker.
So Santa's actually the head elf or senior elf.
This is so cute. We're going to post a picture of this on our Instagram. I'm kind of obsessed with this.
All of the elves build toys, and Santa is considered to be the head of the elves or manager of the elves. I'm not sure what term would you use to describe. I hate to say head elf because some people are going to misinterpret that, but you're the senior elf.
Do you have elves that you hire to come work with you?
Actually, I have several elves and several people who have worked as elves within our organization. Mrs. Claus and I actually, we have a business that we started, and we've applied for a 501c3. It's called the Believable Foundation. And within the network of the Believable Foundation, we have ourselves, 3 other Santas, about 6 female and 1 male elf.
We have that mean one.
And then we also have a mean green furry creature whose name we're not allowed to say because of copyright infringement, but most people know who that is.
Yes, we
He
had.
comes from Whoville.
Well, nowadays, everything from that franchise is being canceled.
Yes. Apparently it's all offensive now.
It's all offensive. I mean, I guess people have been trying. So even like on this podcast, you're not allowed to say his name.
I don't know if I can or can't, but I won't. Just because of not knowing
the G word.
The G word.
The
All
G
right,
word.
even I know who he is. The G word. I mean, I'm going to respect it and not say Mr.
If you think kids are scared of Santa Claus when they're young, wait till they see a big furry guy, because they forget that his heart grew in sizes.
So he's and you bring him along to your events.
Yes.
Sometimes.
What are you guys performing at these? Like when someone calls you up and says, "Hey, like, are you going to Christmas parties? Is that what you're mostly working as?
So
are you doing a show?"
The bulk of my work, I mean, I can be selective. I've been doing it long enough, and I've got a pretty good following that I can pick and choose the work that I do. And anytime an opportunity comes for me to do military work, I always take it because it's something that I'm supportive of our nation. And anytime there is work that is hospital-oriented or the Ronald McDonald House, for example, things of that nature, I always prioritize that work. Anything that's associated with a nonprofit, I'll try to make my best effort to promote for them. And then after that, you have corporate parties, and then you have home parties and parades. And
there's a lot of parades this year because of COVID.
Right. Things that are social distance, parades were huge this year. I think we did probably
riding in fire trucks, golf carts.
The drive-by parades.
Probably 6 parades, I think.
We were in a boat.
In 2020.
The boat was fun. I thought the boat was fun. It was a rescue vehicle.
Yeah, because originally I had gotten in touch with you, I think over a year ago, or close to a year ago, and we were going to shoot your episode closer to the holiday season, closer to Christmas time, and you were so busy. And you were like, "Oh, this year, because of COVID, I'm probably not going to be busy. You know, there's no holiday parties or whatever it is." And even with COVID, you were so busy that you were like, "I am slammed, that I'm turning down work."
So I was surprised at the number of people who called this year looking for Santa. And I would have assumed that with things canceling that there wasn't going to be any work out there. But in reality, a lot of professional Santas who are elderly were not working because of COVID. And I'm 54, despite what's on my sleigh license.
I mean, I don't know about that.
And I happen to have O negative blood, and people with O blood, statistically, according to the CDC and the WHO, they say that you're less susceptible to catching COVID. I'm very careful about wearing a mask and carrying hand sanitizer and doing as much social distancing as reasonably possible. So I decided to work. And
Dr. Fauci said that Santa's immune.
Yeah, I hope he's right. So far, he has been. But I went ahead and put myself out there and made myself available. Now, I will tell you that I worked probably twice as hard for about 1/3 of the money, but I worked. So I stayed busy.
But a lot of it also was like Zoom Santa-ing.
Yeah, we did some virtual stuff, and I'm not a fan of that.
Neither am I.
Did it, but the reality is that if you are a good quality professional Santa, the in-person experience is going to be radically different than the virtual experience. And I think that especially when Mrs. Claus and I work together and we're in front of children or in front of adults, the presentation that we can give in person is tenfold over what we could ever do through a camera.
It's always like that. Like my therapist went to Zoom this year and she was like, "Do you want to do Zoom sessions?" I was like, "No, like I can't." I'm very big on human connection. And even for this show, I have a lot of people who've been like, "Oh my God, I have friends out in LA or out here who have such interesting jobs. Do you want to interview them via like doing, some sort of a Zoom putting them up on a screen or something?" And I've considered it, and I'm not going to completely, say never about it, but I'm for me, I feed off of energy, and I'm very big on being able, and I know that with COVID, it's hard, but I am very big on having a human connection because that, and especially with a job that you do, you're, again, like we talked about earlier, being Santa is an experience, right? So it's not a job that you need to get done by plugging in, computers, typing in whatever the data, which can be done from anywhere. Being Santa, like sitting on a lap, right? That's like quintessential Santa. Is that a thing that really happens a lot? People sitting on your lap?
Absolutely. I mean, in a non-COVID year, if I tell you that thousands of people sit on my lap, it's an accurate number, by all means.
Oh my God, I would.
Adults too.
Yeah,
The adults are
and
funny
children.
too because you want to talk them into that. Because everybody, not everyone actually, since you don't have that experience necessarily, but a lot of people grew up that way. So it's funny to come back and do it again. And sometimes parents do it because their kids are reluctant. So you say, Dad, you come get your picture taken, and that will warm up the kids. But other times it's just plain fun. I mean, that's part of Christmas, right? It's magical. It should bring happiness. And so
Yeah,
I think that's what makes it fun. It's one of the best jobs in the world.
Even for me growing up, and I know that we weren't allowed to say Christmas and we weren't allowed to whatever, but my mom, she didn't grow up as religious. She became religious more later on, but like she would like admit to me in, confidence, like, I love driving around at night and looking at the Christmas lights. And I still love it. The holiday season, I will get in my car and drive and just look at all it really is a magical time. And I don't know, to me, like I have a really good friend of mine this year who also grew up Orthodox Jewish. And this year she had a Christmas tree in her house. And she's like, I'm not a Christian. I don't believe in Christianity, but damn it, I fucking want a Christmas tree. And I'm going to put it on in my house and decorate it in rainbows and God knows what, because it makes me happy and it brings me joy. And that's really what it kind of all comes down to. It's about the joy. It's not even about religion. You're not... When I'm sitting here thinking of you, I'm not thinking of a religious figure. I'm thinking of a more commercialized figure than anything, but a joyous figure, an iconic figure. Milk and cookies. That's very much your diet, what you consist of.
Do you know what Red doesn't know? He doesn't know that before we leave here today, we're going to get a picture of him sitting on my lap.
That's perfect.
I was thinking,
Absolutely.
I literally, as...
Do you think he'll send it to his parents?
I doubt it. But if I have his parents' address, I'll send it to him.
Oh my God, I'm gonna send that out to as my Hanukkah card this year. Merry Hanukkah. People sitting on your lap, so that doesn't make you uncomfortable, like, because I'm like a kind of not like a don't. I could never imagine having thousands of strangers sitting on my lap.
So you asked if it made me uncomfortable. So I'm going to answer that a couple different ways. So there is, in my industry, there's a lot of talk about insurance, because when you have personal contact with people, and especially personal contact with children, sometimes it can be viewed inappropriate.
Yeah, you got to be careful about that.
It's actually one of the reasons why we wear gloves.
Right.
Because you can see them in photos.
One of the things that you're taught when you get into this industry, and if anybody wants to get into it, something you should take into consideration.
Exactly.
Always wear a white glove, and always in a photograph, make sure that your gloves are visible.
You can see two hands.
So when I'm holding a baby, and I've got a baby in my hands, I make sure that both of my hands are visible in photographs. And it's difficult to do because sometimes positioning and things, it's just, you can't always get where you need to be, but you have to be conscious of it constantly. One of the things that Mrs. Claus and I do, and I'm not here to plug anything, but I'm going to tell you a brief story.
Go
There's
for
an
it.
organization called Race Against Abuse of Children Everywhere, and it's known by the acronym RACE. And Mrs. Claus and I both sit on the board of directors for that organization. So in our home state of Maryland, we are considered experts in the field of child sexual abuse. So I'm an advocate for education and raising awareness, and I spend a lot of my personal time doing that throughout the year. So having that knowledge and having the ability to educate people about it makes me uber aware of what I'm doing all the time. So when you ask me if I'm uncomfortable with people sitting on my lap, not at all, because I know what I'm doing is right, and I know that I can give that person that memory or that laugh or whatever it's going to be, and I know that it's going to be tasteful and correct and legal.
Yeah.
Now, it's a good thing that Mrs. Claus is quite secure, because if you do some corporate events, some late night, evening, women are in their fancy clothes, they've had a few cocktails, they're a little saucy with Santa. I'm just saying.
I was actually it's on my list of questions to ask you, because first of all, what you said about, having this organization working towards people, helping people against sexual assault and whatever, because it is so unfortunate how common it is. I know way too many people who are, have been victims of sexual assault, especially in childhood, and and especially when it comes to such an iconic figure like Santa, who's supposed to create so much joy and spread so much happiness, that it has that ability to turn, you know, kind of bad or sour on some level. And it's like, so there's that yin and yang, and it's beautiful that you dedicate your time towards that. And I think that is so admirable.
So when you say that you know some people that have been exposed to this, it is different to determine something quantitative, because not all abuse is reported, but it is assumed by the professionals nationwide that under the age of 18, 1 out of 3 girls and 1 out of 5 boys is sexually abused. So the fact that you know somebody, I'm going to tell you that you probably know a lot of people.
Yeah,
You might not be aware of it, but you probably know a lot of people that have been abused.
I was actually downplaying it because it's unfortunate, but it does happen often, especially in religious communities, and not just in any. I think that and this is not a conversation that I expected to have with you today, but at the same time, it's an important conversation, and it's a conversation that I want to have just in general. It is important because people who grow up in very, very, very sheltered environments often are not given proper sex education, and therefore tend to act out in ways because they literally do not know better. They literally do not have healthy outlets for their sexuality. They don't have a way of coping with it. They don't, people can be closeted, people can be frustrated, people don't know. And that's why it's so unfortunate that it happens not just in the Jewish community, in the Christian community, in a lot of these insular communities that it happens. And bringing awareness and creating change, that's really the only way to actually do it, is by educating people. So yeah, I unfortunately know a lot of people who have experienced that in their life, and it's unfortunate. But at the same time, there are so many amazing organizations. My mother is a therapist. Two of my sisters are becoming therapists, and it's like, on one hand, it's like, why do we need that many therapists? But on the other hand, it's like, at least they're out there doing something to help. And I think that's beautiful that you do this. And what's the name of your organization again?
It's the Race Foundation, and if you look it up online, it's www.raace.org, race.org.
But the Race Against Abuse of Children Everywhere.
Right, is the correct
name
of the organization.
It is important, and I want to, somehow, I don't know, I want to do an episode in the future or something like that where I really, talk about it and delve deeper into this, because this is, as much as, we're having fun and we're chatting and it's Santa and whatever it is, these are serious topics that people don't talk about enough. And it's important to address that it happens everywhere. It happens in every community, and it's not shameful if you're, a victim or anything like that. And it's something that needs to be brought awareness to. So thank you for bringing awareness to that. And, I don't know, Alan, can we add in like on the bottom, we'll put in like a hotline or something for if anybody, I'm not exactly sure what organization it is, but I do want to do my part in helping. So thank you for that. But moving to that other aspect of it is that there are women that you said that get handsy with you.
I'm going to stand up for a second.
So more so, it depends on if they want to be on the nice list.
1 second. Do we want to...
I'm just getting a cramp. So
oh, no, you're good. You're good.
I thought you were going to demonstrate.
But going back to people sitting on your lap, has there ever been like someone, like, you ever had a kid like projectile vomit on you or something terrible? Like, do you have any memorable, horrible stories that happened of people sitting on your lap?
Santas who work in my industry have some horrific stories of things that have happened to them. And I'm almost, thank God this is a wooden table here. I have not had that happen to me. I was bit by a dog on my nose, which drew blood. I had a dog grab me and punctured actually through my nose. We were doing, Santa pictures with pets, and I was holding this little ankle biter dog, whatever it was, and he reached up and he grabbed me and he caught my glasses and scratched them and then went into my nose. So that was
Did you sue?
No, actually, I after I got the bleeding to stop, I made him bring the dog back until we got the picture.
Really? Did you give him coal?
No,
no pepperoni for him.
This is something that I shouldn't say as Santa, but I like dogs more than I like people.
Okay.
So I was convinced that I was going to get the picture with the dog, and I think we did about 40 dogs that day.
So aside from people, you're
Not all
taking
small young children smell good, by the way. Especially if they've been waiting in line for a long time, soiled diapers.
I've definitely held some full diapers before.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I mean, and you're paranoid because, you're holding a child and you know what's going on or you know what's happened. And you're just thinking, please don't let this
leak.
As soon as they walk away and leave, you look at yourself like, please.
You got all that white fur.
Yeah.
Oh
well,
my
and you
God.
actually travel always with more than one suit. You do.
And that's why you hold the white gloves. You just hold them out like Lion King style, just
Right.
like as far away as possible. Wow. The more I talk to you, the less I want to be Santa.
Well, if you go back to the happy hour, pretty women that want to be on the nice or the not, they want to be naughty to be on the nice list, right?
Yeah, there is. So does that happen a lot? Also, that you're at these parties and women are hitting on.
Naughty girls get better gifts.
Oh, okay. A
They're
Santa
usually in small boxes and they glitter.
Having a Santa fetish is such a real thing.
Actually, it does exist, and it's out there. And I have been approached by countless women and men who have Santa fetishes or have dreams or aspirations of something. And you just have to know how to handle that or how to deal with that.
So what do you say in those situations, or
I
do?
mean, I can always say, I don't think Mrs. Claus would appreciate that, or, unfortunately, I have some children I have to go see at this point. I mean, there's always some kind of an answer that you can give to, and I'm never dismissive about it, or I'm never derogatory in my response. I'll play along with it, but I'm certainly not going to follow that path, or at least admit to it while she's sitting there.
How did the two of you meet?
We went to high school together.
Really?
That's correct.
So you guys,
We have a confession.
Yeah.
Do you know that we're not married?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's what I wanted to get into.
Because we are different that way than most working pairs.
Right, because I wanted to get into this, is that you guys are not a real life couple, but she's your work wife.
Right.
And you guys built this business together.
Off of a dare.
Off of a dare, because you dared him you said if you can find a suit that fits.
Yeah.
But you guys are known each other for how long now?
So in junior high school, middle school, for those of you who are too young to know what junior high school is, that's where we probably first met. But I can't say that we were friends or we hung out together or anything like that. But
He was a nerd.
I was definitely aware of who she was. And then in high school, our paths crossed a few times. And then after I graduated, Mrs. Claus is 1 year younger than me. We had some mutual friends, and we all went out one night, and I guess that's really the first time we talked. And then didn't really have much interaction again until social media, till Facebook came out.
Santa likes to plan a lot of events, and I'm a better planner. They actually call me Julie
McCoy.
The
call her
cruise director.
The
cruise director.
So for our social
because I
group-
come up with a lot of great adventures.
Yeah, she does all the planning for our social group, and we were actually we were going to a Ravens game, and I had a set of tickets for a playoff game, and she came and picked them up, and we had a conversation, and just a friendship built from that.
That's so amazing. Does it ever get in the way of your real life relationships, where there's like jealousy because you have like this woman that you've been working with, or this man you've been working with for so many years, and you guys have this?
That we were away all weekend doing Santa stuff together,
literally,
in a hotel in a different state.
You guys just drove up from Virginia today. You were at a Santa conference, if I'm not mistaken.
So we attended two different events. There's an organization called the International Brotherhood of Real Bearded Santas, of which we're both members.
Her beard is very real looking. Yeah.
I'm checking. Yep, I pluck.
And the Southeast Virginia Santas had a meeting that was held Saturday morning, and the Colonial Santas had a meeting that was held Sunday morning today. And we attended both of those meetings. And they're basically luncheons, and it's a camaraderie thing. There's some vendors that are there that offer what I call supplies, things that we buy. In fact, we bought some new gloves that we'll use for 2021. And
how many pairs of gloves do you go through in a season?
So that's interesting. In some cases, a pair of gloves will get you halfway through an event, and then they're trash, and you flip over.
If the baby's diaper was full.
I always have a spare pair I keep in my front left pocket, and the suits that I wear now I had custom made, and they have interior and exterior pockets, and I always have a spare pair of gloves in my front left pocket. So there are times when I'll switch gloves in the middle of an event.
COVID, you certainly switch gloves.
With COVID, you switch every event. And then sometimes you can wash them and they'll come clean, and other times you can't and you toss them. So I've never counted how many pairs of gloves that I've gone through in a season. But if I had to make a guess, if I work 100 events, I'm going to soil 150 to 175 pairs of gloves, and maybe 100 of them I can wash and reuse one additional time, and then the balance are going to get tossed.
So you're doing about 150 events per season?
Well, a little over 100. I did, I don't want to tell you the exact numbers, but I think I did 121 in 2018. 2019, I think it was 111. And then, of course, 2020 was a flop, but I still did somewhere in the mid-60s events that I did last year during COVID.
What is the process of transforming into the full Santa? Because I know you have a whole ritual that you do, I think, with your beard and your hair and everything. So, when do you transform? Because this is the off-season Santa that we're getting, the Hawaiian, chilling on the beach kind of Santa and Mrs. Claus. But when do you go full-blown Santa? Because I do want to have you back in the full red suit, and then I'll definitely sit on your lap.
Oh, you're going to do it today. So full-blown Santa, to go to that point. So I'll start booking events. Usually in January, I start booking for the upcoming December. And in some cases, I book 1 to 2 years in advance. I even have customers that we're 3 years down the line. We're talking about events already that we're going to do together. So around September, I'll look at what I have proposed for November and December, and I'll look at where there's some blocks where I can go get bleached. And bleaching is everything from the neck up gets bleached to white.
So this beard, is this your real hair color, beard color?
There's some residual bleach that's in here, but in this area right in here, I have some deep black, and it's actually the only black on my entire body is in here, and it's the most challenging to get white. And then in my eyebrows and in my mustache, there's still residual dark brown, and the silver and gray is coming in. And I don't mind showing your viewers, but my hair itself, so this is the Guy Fieri look.
I like it. It's very Cruella de Vil.
Yeah. Balance of the bleach is the lighter gray that you see, and then the dark brown below that is my natural hair color. But in November or December, it would be solid white as this hat.
So the first time that he became, well, I guess when you first became Santa, you have to find a hairdresser that's willing to help you transform. And so
I've bleached my hair before, and I would not recommend. I've done it out of like the CVS, buy it off the shelf for like a Jewish holiday. Ooh,
so it turns out that it's easy to put color in. It's hard to get color out. So to get to a white or a gray is really hard. So the first year that they did it, so Santa's quite a baby. Some of the products don't smell very good. His eyes were watering. He's like, my head burns. It's terrible. And next thing we know, he has scalp burns from the chemicals.
I mean, it is a horrific experience.
Yeah.
And I had a professional do it who's actually a friend of mine. And shout out to Aaron Rash. He's the first guy to ever bleach my hair.
That was your first mistake. Her last name is Rash.
His.
You should have known.
No, but Aaron is a fantastic stylist.
I'm kidding. Hi, Aaron.
And he bleached my hair the very first time. And it came out, it went to like an orange. And then we hit it a second coat, and it lightens up. And he got it reasonably to a combination of white and gray, and it still had some blonde in it. Whenever it really did, he was afraid to do any more bleaching to it for damaging the hair, but mostly for damaging the skin, because I had chemical burns on my face and my scalp.
That's a lot of commitment. Yeah. What about you, Mrs. Claus? What does it take for you to transform? You just got to put on the uniform and you're done?
I'm much easier. I have long hair. I have peacock colors at the end, but I put mine up in a bun and I hide it. I'm ready to go.
You have to show them. I showed them.
But I actually, I find that it's much more in the dress and how you do it that way. And so I think Santa has to have that snowy beard. So it's harder on you that way. And especially the balance of trying to make the colors right is you don't want to get the chemical burns, but you also don't want it to break off or fall out.
I've had years where I've been really, really lucky with my beard. I've never had any major breakage of hair in my beard. But I have had my head look like a dog with mange before. So I have all
That's
my hats.
exactly true.
All of my hats are made slightly oversized, so I sort of pull them down and you don't see any hair. But I still bleach because, there are events that I'll be at, and sometimes, families will invite Santa to come into the home, and you're wearing a 40-pound wool-based suit, and they want you to sit in a rocker in front of a natural fireplace and take pictures. And the inside of the house is 95 degrees. And you were already at 102 when you walked in their house. So it's difficult, and sometimes I take my hat off. So if my hair wasn't white, then I would lose the authenticity that I'm presenting to them.
That reminds me so much of that famous, this is a Jewish joke, the famous humor where you see it's like a bunch of Jews sitting around a table, like having a Jewish religious dinner, and you see Santa Claus open the door, and they're like, oops, wrong house. And they're like, what? It must be freezing outside. You're freezing your tuchus off. Come in, sit down, have some matzo ball soup. We're like, see, you're going into people's homes. Mm-hmm. Who do you guys you don't have a boss, right? So you keep saying like, oh, we have to do
I'm the
this.
boss. Haven't you figured that out yet?
But what I'm saying is that you keep talking about these rules that Santa Claus needs to follow, right? But because talk to me a little bit about, you said you went to Santa school.
I did. I've been to a couple of different Santa schools.
Yeah, we've been to several.
Santa school. So the fact that Santa school exists to me is so interesting because
we didn't know it existed when we started either.
Okay, so you once you had him in the dare, and then you did it, and then.
So the first year, I think too, we had young children in the family, and so you enjoy it through your friends and your family. But I also talked to men to go into a grocery store, and I said, I stood behind a pole and laughed the whole time as I made him go in and buy milk and cookies. And I laughed. And actually, the neighborhood we were in, nobody even paid attention to him, which made it funnier to me to have this size man in a red suit, hat, beard, the whole 9 yards, buy milk and cookies, and the cashier didn't even crack a smile. And I was in stitches.
To add humor to it, I bought a box of gourmet cookies, and then I bought a quart of skim milk, which I thought would be funny. And when I went up, I got absolutely no response from the cashier or anybody else in the store, and I paid for it and walked out.
She's like, oh, another day. When's my shift over?
He does get a lot of cookies, though. At home visits or if you do corporate events, he does get his fair share.
What is up with the cookies and milk for Santa? Is that like a...
So I'm not going to lie to you and tell you that I know the source of it, but I know what it is. Children typically will put out cookies for Santa to eat at Christmas Eve when he comes to their house to deliver toys. And then equally, they'll put out food for the reindeer as well. And reindeer typically will eat carrots or celery. Carrot is probably the most popular food. And then quite often when I have conversations with children and they ask me about it, I'll tell them that the reindeer also like broccoli because broccoli is very good for them. And it's also very good for Santa, and it's very good for you as well. Do you like broccoli? And then the children are not sure how to respond because most children hate broccoli. So they don't want to upset Santa. So either they lie to me and they say they love it, and there's the occasional few that do. But mom and dad are usually cheering me on in the background because I've now created something, and for sure this child is going to eat broccoli the next time it's served to them.
Do you have ridiculous things that the kids have asked you for?
Absolutely.
You care to share some of them?
So probably... And I don't know that it's the funniest thing that ever happened, but it's the first thing that ever happened to me. I was at a restaurant that is in the community that I grew up in, or that we grew up in. We actually grew up not that far apart from each other. And I was sitting there, and it was a party for the local newspaper in the community. It was their company party. Mm-hmm. And the grandson of the owner of that newspaper walked up to me, and it was one of the children, and I don't want to tangent, but there's a couple of different kinds of children who come to Santa, and you have the ones that are afraid that Mrs. Claus talked about earlier. You have those that are receptive and they're in and out, and then you have that child who has 6,000 questions that they want to ask you in 4 minutes.
That's who I would be. I mean, that's literally me, what I'm doing right now.
But that child came up to me and asked me so many different things, and out of the blue, he said, Santa, where do reindeer poop? And when it happened, I did this. Because I'm thinking, one of my friends is in this room and put this kid up, sent this kid up here and asked me this question. And I'm looking around, and I don't see anybody in the room that I know. And there's nobody looking at me. I can't pick up on where this happened. And I realized the child is serious. He asked a legit question. So I told him in the barn. We keep the reindeer in a barn back at the North Pole. And that whole process, I mean, my delay in response was probably not more than 10 seconds because I consider myself to be fairly quick and quick-witted with responses. But I did delay because I looked around. But in general, that would be the correct answer. And if you want to know where the reindeer stay or where they poop or where they eat, it's in the barn at the North Pole.
One of the other questions that I think you also get a lot of is the elf on the shelf question.
Yeah, it's very common for children. You know, kids who think they are smart, they want to bust you. They want to prove you're not the real Santa.
Mm-hmm.
So
they're onto you.
Yeah, they'll ask you, what's my name? And if I'm in somebody's home, obviously I know the name of the children. I have mom or dad or grandmom email me the names of the children, the name of the household dog, maybe the names of their schools, or if one particular child is on the soccer team. I know all of that when I walk.
So you when you're doing these private events, you have to really do the research.
Oh, yeah, do some homework. And when they'll ask about the elf on the shelf, though, which is a really...
What does that mean? What are they asking?
So they'll ask, do you know my elf? Do you know my elf's name? And, of course, I don't know.
Right.
So another professional Santa who lives in Virginia, I had this conversation with him a couple of years ago, and he said that when a child asks him that question, he'll say, oh, that's elf 17465. Okay. And the child will look at him and not understand, and he'll say, did you name the elf or did I name the elf? And the children think, we named the elf. Their mom and dad brought the elf on the shelf out, and they said, what's his name going to be? Oh, it's going to be Sparkles or whatever. And they chose that name, not me. I only know that elf by his number.
Oh.
And I won. I won that battle.
Checkmate, kid. I didn't know. I thought Elf on the Shelf was just a cute rhyming meme that we share
it's
on Facebook.
Red.
Well, I know. I've seen it on Facebook. I just didn't realize.
He's mischievous. He gets into a fair amount of trouble at everybody's home.
But
the kids can't touch him or he'll lose his magic.
Oh. Have you ever had parents call you to their house in the middle of, March or April and be like, all right, my kids are acting up. We need a visit from Santa to get here and tell them that they're getting nothing for Christmas this year and you're going to set them straight. Do you do that as well?
Absolutely. Yeah, I've done a fair amount of that over the phone, but I've done a lot of that in person as well.
Well, now you can do it over Zoom, because over the phone you can have. Really?
Yeah.
What do you do in these situations?
So Zoom is interesting because
do you have to put on the suit and everything to?
Yeah, I do, and I have a virtual background that looks like the workshop at the North Pole. I probably have some photos I'll show you later. But a Zoom thing, which I'm not a fan of because it takes away from some of the experience, the personality of the experience. But children will ask you, different questions, and your parents will sometimes coach you. A Zoom chat window, exists on the side of your Zoom screen. There's always a chat window on the side. So you can get information from the parents, and the kids, they're not watching. They don't know. Or I've been emailed in advance, or I've had a phone call in advance, and I know, some history about the child. If the child's acting up, or the child's in karate class and he's not doing well, or whatever it would be, I normally know that ahead of time. And I can sit in my office and I'll have basically two windows up, and one is the Zoom window and one is my notes. So as I'm talking to the children, I have notes and I can feed off the two.
Kids love it when you know the name of the dog. Like where's Buster?
Oh.
And because, again, that really buys into the fact that he sees them all the time. So he knows when they're naughty or nice or sleeping.
It proves the authenticity. I mean,
it's a little creepy to think that you're being watched at all times.
It's creepy, and I wouldn't argue that. And it's also a little bit of an invasion of privacy. I mean,
this is actually how we were raised to believe how God is, right? God is watching you at all times, and God is, knows if you're good, and then you're doing sins or good deeds, and you have that balance in your life. But that's really what the religion is based off of, is that you're constantly being watched by God. So I guess Santa is on some level that, except that the gift is much more real, and then the bad side is coal. But it also gets kids to behave. Yeah. So
absolutely.
There's that. But
I can manipulate a child. I don't like to use that expression, but the reality,
can add it to your resume.
Being Santa is a license to lie to children. Actually, I mean, you're allowed to say whatever it is you need to say to convince that child that the experience is real, and also to and the parents or grandparents, they're going to want you to put that child in a direction. If there's bad behavior, you want to try and correct it. If there's good behavior, you want to enforce it, or not enforce, but endorse it. You want to praise them if they're doing something good. And I make every effort to have all of that information before I start. Now, There are times where I've worked events, and I'm going to give an example here of something that Mrs. Claus did that was fantastic to me. She's far more observant than I am. So we were working an event in Howard County at the Howard County Fairgrounds, and it was 2 years ago in July. And so a variety of children were coming up to us, and this was all improv. None of this, I didn't know anybody that was coming in there. It was an open to the public event. And a little girl came up, and Mrs. Claus was talking to her about, were you in the pool today, or did you go swimming today? And she's having this conversation, and it's as if she knows this child. And I'm thinking, I have no idea where she's getting this information from. And the child moves down the line, and the next one comes up, and she says, what instrument do you play? And the child was in band in school, and they moved down the line. So when there was nobody around, I looked at her, and I said, how do you know these things? Well, the first little girl was suntanned, and she was wearing an Ocean City t-shirt, Ocean City, Maryland. And she just made an assumption that the child had been out in the sun and had been in the pool or whatever. The child's hair, the little girl, her hair was kind of blondie, and sometimes chlorine will do that to a kid's hair. It lightens it up. And the next one that came up was wearing a t-shirt that had a musical note on it.
No, it had band camp.
But I mean, it's just, I don't always pick up on those things. I'm often looking at the room, and she's looking at the individual.
You're busy. You have you have so many kids coming in and out nonstop. I mean, it's hard to pay attention to every single detail, but it seems that's this job is paying attention to detail.
It is the value of teamwork, though, because we both have different sets of skills. There are people who know us in our personal lives who would say that we're very similar, and there are people who know us that would say we're very different. And when we are in Santa mode, Santa gear, whatever you want to call it, whatever the expression is, when we are working as a team, as Santa and Mrs. Claus, we both have different skill sets that we have that maybe didn't mesh together on day one, but they mesh together now. And she's laughing because I'm sure she's got a story to tell you.
Well, and I'm even just thinking about the mumblers, right? There's kids who mumble. They come up, they're kind of nervous. What do you want for Christmas?
What do they mostly ask for?
Video games.
Yeah, it varies from year to year. But I'll tell you that
hoverboards.
In October and November, I start watching a lot of television, and I watch the commercials, and I pay attention to what's being advertised. And then I talk to my friends who have small children or grandchildren, and I'll, what are your children looking for Christmas this year? And then I'll basically get a build in my head of the top 20 things that are asked for. But in years past, Legos are huge.
Paw Patrol for little kids.
Nerf guns are huge.
What are some of the weirdest things that they ask for? Do you have any memorable, super...
A rainbow unicorn.
Where you, look at this kid and you're like, dude, you need therapy. What the hell are you asking
rainbow unicorn.
for?
I've had, and I don't know what it's from, but a rainbow unicorn, that expression, I've been asked multiple times in the last 2 years. And I don't know, it's probably from a cartoon or something.
And what do you say when they ask for a rainbow unicorn?
So...
We're out of stock.
So I'll ask them, have you been naughty or nice? And a lot of times when children are asking you things, you're watching the parents. Because when the little boy says, I want
a puppy.
I want a puppy, and mom's doing this, then Santa says, well, I have to tell you a story. At the North Pole, we build toys, and we don't actually build puppies. I said, that's something that's a little bit different. So if you'd like to have a puppy or a kitten or a goldfish, you really have to talk to mom and dad and work it out. And if they say it's okay, then I'll be able to bring you a puppy. But I can't just do that without their input.
Mm-hmm.
And we also talk about that because puppies and kittens aren't good in sleighs, right?
Yeah, it's not
only reindeer.
Yeah,
right. And no one ever wants a reindeer for some reason.
Also, most children have a lot of questions about Rudolph. He's by far the most favorite reindeer, by far.
Do you know the names of all the other reindeer?
Absolutely.
I have them written down here. I was going to quiz you on it and see if you remembered all of their. What are they?
Dasher, Dancer, Prancer, Vixen, Comet, Cupid, Donner, and Blitzen. And since you're looking there, the actual correct pronunciation of Donner is Donder. It just depends upon what version of the story you're reading. And Blitzen is actually, I think it's Blitzon or something. There's a different pronunciation for it. And it just depends upon, again, what version of the story you're reading.
And Rudolph. Wow, I'm actually superbly impressed. I wrote them down.
He sang it in his head. Don't get
did
him
you?
right. Did you hear? He can't give them to you in a different order.
I could have.
Even so, you got it in the correct order. I'm very impressed.
Yeah, but it's not fair because I sing, and that's the one song that I choose because all children know that song.
Oh, really?
So I don't probably sing Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
I know Santa Claus is coming to town.
I don't know all the words to that.
Well, I don't know all the words to any of them, but I do like Christmas music. But I'm very impressed that you knew all of the. You passed the quiz. I think that you're the real Santa. You're the real deal.
Absolutely.
Actually, I think too. Several of the kids will challenge his boots. So what they say in the Santa business, it's about the beards, the belt, and the boots, and that's the sign of a good Santa. So if you see a much cheaper Santa, he has a poor belt, or boot toppers, things that you pull over. And so remember the little fellow who got down and actually pulled on your boots and was so impressed that you had real boots on, and he said, "You are the real Santa."
Wow.
Over his boots.
So, and I'm going to add something to that story. So I talked before about the fact that this is a business and we're building a brand. And I told you the Believable Foundation is the name of our organization, but the word believe is significant with what I do. I actually wear a buckle, and the buckle itself has the word believe written in it. And a lot of times children will come up to me and I'll stand close and I'll say, "Can you read this?" And they'll look at it, and maybe they can, maybe they can't. It depends on their age. But when they eventually get out the word believe, whether I help them or whether mom and dad help them, they'll say it says believe. And then I'll hand them a coin like this, and I'm going to hand that to you and show it to you.
Can I keep this?
Yeah, absolutely. And if you look on one side,
I met Santa.
right.
I made the nice list.
But if you look on the other
But earlier
side,
you told me I've been redeemed.
maybe. But it says believe, and that's an actual 100% replica of my belt buckle. So I'll hand it to the child with my hand open this way, and I'll say, "This coin also says believe. And if you flip it over, it says that you've met me and you've made the nice list, and you can keep this." And when I give that to a child, I won.
Because it's something physical and like tangible that they get to take home with you.
Absolutely. Same thing too with a bell. When Santa is associated with bells, and when children hear something like this, are you familiar with the story from Polar Express? You know the story of Polar Express?
I think I've seen scenes of it. Yeah, Alan knows it. Alan loves movies. He watches movies all day. I once saw it on parts of it.
Right.
Yeah.
So in the movie Polar Express, there is a bell that is given to children, and if they can hear the bell, it means that they believe in Santa. So often I'll have a bell like this, and can you hear that? And if you can, that means that you believe. And in some cases, I'll give the bell to the child, depending upon the circumstances.
Until you have a deaf child, and you're like, "Oh."
It is so interesting that you say that. And we talked before about Santa School. So 2 years ago?
Yep.
2 years ago, we went to Atlanta to the Northern Lights Santa Academy, run by...
There's a school for Santas, several of them.
That's what you were telling me. I was fascinated that you learn in Santa School, that it's like a real school that
I
exists.
think they should have one in Hawaii because we went to Atlanta, and I would much rather, if I'm going to go away for a little bit. I mean, why not a tropical location? But he takes me to Atlanta.
Noted. You guys are wearing, Hawaii. Yeah, like the Hawaiian Santa's outfits are pretty well known.
Right.
We went to Sarasota last year. That was close
You
enough.
wanted to take me to Michigan. I mean,
You guys
why
are
not
the
San
funniest.
Diego?
Back to my story.
Back in Alaska, North
We're in
Pole.
Atlanta, and we're taking classes, and one of the classes was another professional Santa who taught sign language. And I took the class. We took it together, and Mrs. Claus sat there tentatively and paid attention, and I sat there and played on my phone because I was disinterested, and I'm being honest with you.
I yelled at him afterwards.
She told me, she says, "You need to learn this." And I'm like, "No, I don't." And it comes up so infrequently in my business that I was like, I don't need to know that. And this past year, due to COVID, the U.S. Air Force Band did not do their holiday show live with an audience. They did it taped. And I was brought in to be the Santa to work with the Air Force Band, which I did. And I shot for 2 days. They shot the concert over a 5-day period, but I was there for 2 days. And at the very end, there was a grand finale, and I was up on stage, and they were playing a medley of songs, and I was dancing to them, and the camera's in front of me. So nothing that I say can they hear, but as I'm dancing around, my head is, I'm running. What do I do next? What do I do next? Had I known how to sign, I would have signed "Merry Christmas, Santa Loves You." And I couldn't do it. And I'm pissed that I couldn't do it.
So
Well, there's
the
always
message
next year.
Mrs. Claus is always right.
Can you sign "Merry Christmas"?
I could. I've forgotten since then, but I could.
On that day, she could have. But the reality is...
You have to practice
He
it.
taught us that. And I could not have done 5% of it.
That's awesome. I'm actually working on getting somebody in the studio to interview a professional ASL, American Sign Language person.
My goal now, the next school that I attend, if they offer a course in that, I'm going to go, and it's going to be the one that's going to be the most important to me, and I'm going to know how to do that. And I could kick myself for not being able to do it at that exact moment. And we were filming.
So
it
when
on
we're in the
live.
grocery store all season long, he's gonna sign Merry
That's amazing.
Christmas
I
to
mean, just
everyone.
because you
But
haven't
have to
learned it
use
until
right?
now, you know, you'll be able to make, you're not, it comes up infrequently for you, but there's going to come a time where you're going to have that one deaf kid and you're going to make his whole Christmas. You're going to
Anyone
make his
who's
year.
hearing a parent, to me, it's that home run. I mean, that's really why you do it, is to have that experience that's a one in the lifetime that they remember, that they leave happy, that they have the picture that's spectacular, because that lasts. I think that's what's really important.
Aside from the funny stuff that the kids ask for, do they ever ask for like heartbreaking things? Like, I want my father to come home from war, or like my whatever who passed away to come back to life. Like, what are some of the sadder things that they ask for, and what do you say in those situations?
So I've been asked often to get mommy and daddy back together.
In the meantime, mommy has her eyes on you.
No, but it's a frequent question. And it also comes up, you know, my grandma passed away 2 months ago. Can you,
Or is sick.
or sick or whatever. And then often there are children whose parents are in the military, you know, maybe overseas. So, you know, my dad's in Afghanistan. Can you make sure he's safe? Can you bring him home? Things of that nature. And those are all questions that become very real.
Yeah.
Some of that is creates a somber environment for me. You know, it changes the dynamic. I'm always in playful, fun.
You're jolly.
You know, I'm jolly, right? And when that happens, it changes my disposition immediately, because I realize the seriousness of the question, or the seriousness of what my response has to be. And I've used a variety of different things. I mean, like I mentioned before, I feel that I'm fairly quick-witted or quick to respond. I do think quick, and I've come up with some different answers. And it's based upon environment. You know, it's not always the first thing that a child says to me. So I'll feed off of what they've said to me over the previous 2 or 3 minutes, and the room that we're in, and then my response is going to be based upon all of that. But when mommy and daddy are apart, you know, I'll explain to the child that, you know, mommy and daddy are, you know, they're apart for a reason. They both love you, and they both want to be the best mother and best father that they can be for you. And in your case, it's better if they live in 2 separate houses. It gives you twice as much fun, twice as many places you can go, and it allows each of them to be a better parent to you. And I'm okay with that. And in some cases, I might even be able to bring you some presents at mommy's house and at daddy's house at Christmas this year.
On some level, Santa is a little bit like therapy for kids.
Sometimes you have to be, because there are children who believe, and when they believe and they come up to you, you know, people use the expression Christmas magic, and that's what a child is looking for. That child is looking for Christmas magic.
Hope.
To me, and they're looking for hope. And they, you know, my job is to create a memorable experience, but a lot of times the children are the ones who really create that memory. I'm just there for the ride.
Some of the other funny stuff happens is all the questions about the sleigh.
Yeah, there's always questions about the sleigh. Where's the sleigh? It's on the roof. Where are the reindeer? It's on the roof. Well, why can't I see it? Well, because you can't. You have to, you know, it's Christmas magic in order to see it. You have to believe in order to see it. Now, one of the things that I do, and it was actually a family that showed me this, you know, if I'm in someone's home and I'm going to be exiting, I'm probably going to walk out the front door. But the reality is, I'll tell the children, look, if you truly believe in Christmas and you truly believe in Santa, if you stand here at the back of the house and watch up, you'll be able to see Rudolph and the reindeer and myself fly off in the sleigh. And what smart parents will do is Uncle Bobby is upstairs and he's got a set of bells. You know, he's hanging out the window and he's jingling bells, and the kids are looking up. Meanwhile, I'm getting into a minivan out front and I'm driving.
That was one of our rookie mistakes, actually, because, you know, Santa is actually by trade a used car salesman, and so, you know, we took a
used sleigh salesman.
Yeah, exactly. But he took a red minivan off the lot, and we were going to decorate it, you know, with, you know, the brand name and how to contact us. But that means you don't arrive to a neighborhood incognito, right? That means everybody knows you're there. So now we kind of have a hoopty, right? I mean, it's kind of a junker.
I have an older Honda Odyssey that's blue, and I drive that to the events that I go to, because I don't want people to see Santa pull up in a Honda Odyssey. I want them to see, you know, they think I'm coming by sleigh.
Right.
So you actually have to. It's no different than the rock star who shows up to the concert and he pulls up in the limo out back and he comes in. It's the same thing. You don't want to be seen coming in or going out.
You're always on. You're like you're putting on a performance essentially, right? Like does it like by the time Christmas rolls around, are you so burnt out from it that you like, do you enjoy Christmas? Or is it like by the time that Christmas reaches, you are like, thank God, because doing 100 events per season or whatever it is, multiple per day.
He's not much fun on New Year's Eve. He's tired.
I can imagine.
And sometimes it depends on how it falls, right? Sometimes you work until about New Year's.
Right. Like, do you enjoy Christmas? Is it by the time that it rolls, are you just so over it and kind of burnt out that you're like, get me to Hawaii and I don't want to see a Christmas tree?
So I can't say that I don't enjoy it, because Christmas is not just about a single day. Christmas is about an experience and about a time frame and about it's a 2-month thing for me, and I absolutely enjoy what I do. If I didn't enjoy it, I wouldn't do it.
I am getting that from you, that you really do have a love for what you do.
Yeah,
That's what I'm picking up on more than anything.
But Christmas night, do I sleep really good? Absolutely. Now I will tell you that every Christmas morning, about 5:30 in the morning, I get up and I have a crew of volunteers, and we go to the homeless shelter that's not too far from where I live. And about 7 a.m., they wake up all of the people who are there, and we pass out gifts that have been donated to all of the children and the women, and in some cases men. There's 2 different shelters in the same building, and I've done that every year for the last 6 years.
That's amazing. If somebody wants to donate to that, is there a place that they can donate to?
It's the Eastside Family Resource Center on Franklin Square Drive in Rosedale in Baltimore County. And contact April Stevens and tell her Santa told her.
Santa sent
She
you.
knows who I am.
Right. But actually, as far as the homeless shelter goes, people are actually kind at Christmas, so they get a lot of toys. And in so many cases, a lot of toys. So we call ourselves, our 501 is going to be the Believable Foundation, but that's also because we assist where we can. And so often what we advocate our friends for is they need towels. They need towels and washcloths and shower, flip-flops and that sort of stuff, because there's enough people who will get the joy from buying the toys. So because we actually share a fair amount of joy, kind of go a little practical with the shelter. So you deliver other people's gifts.
But I think that's so beautiful because, you're doing this stuff where you're going to the houses and you're, the video games and the skateboards or whatever it is and the trendy stuff that the kids want, the unicorns or whatever. But
hoverboards too.
The hoverboards, exactly. But going to, the homeless shelter, you said you do a lot of volunteer work at the hospital as well.
Well, I've done some hospitals. The shelter is a volunteer event for me. So if you want to talk about Santa and the business of being Santa,
you got to make your money.
There are, every Saturday in December, I jokingly tell my friends, if every day of the year was a Saturday in December, I would own the island that I'm sitting on right now. So, Saturdays in December are huge demand, but equally Christmas Eve is a huge demand. And then there's a demand for Christmas morning. So I have a decision to make every year. Can I go out and make a significant amount of money on Christmas morning, or do I go open that shelter? And I go do the shelter every year. It's the right thing to do because, and I would hope that you would gather this from my personality, but you have to give back. And that's what I do. And I go back to that shelter every year and I make sure that those people have an experience that maybe otherwise they wouldn't have.
Isn't that really what Christmas is all about?
Absolutely.
Giving and, spreading like the love and the joy and like just, giving back. Because at the end of the day, like, as you said, it's a business. You guys got to pay your bills. You got to pay the mortgage or whatever it is. But ultimately, the difference between what you do and what a mall Santa does is you're not there to collect a paycheck. You're there to, provide an experience. Right. And if you were just, what's the highest paying gig in town, you lose that magic. And if you're volunteering at hospitals or homeless shelters and giving back to sick kids, that's really what I think would, at least for me, if I were a Santa, that would get me going. That was what, that's what I would look forward to every year. And like, the giving back part is what makes you okay with doing the Legos and the,
He has fun with that too. But you also appreciate, usually in February, there's a week in the Caribbean somewhere.
February is my vacation week. We usually go somewhere in the Caribbean or wherever we're going to go.
I love
February
that.
Is when I like to go.
Hey, self-care is important. Santa's got to get a suntan too.
I was on the beach in Puerto Rico a couple of years ago, and I was dressed probably similar to what I am right now, and a little girl and her father and mother were walking on the beach, and she just left her parents and ran to me full force and came and running, and I grabbed her and she jumped up in my arms and I'm holding her, and I speak some Spanish. I had 2.5 years of Spanish in school, but that was many years ago. But I'm talking to this child and I'm having at best a communication, and mom and dad walk over and they were completely fine with it. But I'm holding their child who I've never met before on the beach in Puerto Rico. And like I said, when you look like this, you're Santa 365
You can't escape
days
it.
a year.
You
I
can't
did,
escape
though,
it.
make him pack a whole full Santa suit because I wanted him in the beach chair with a cocktail because I thought it would be fun to do Christmas cards. So I wanted him splashing in the water and all that kind of stuff. But it draws kind of a little bit of attention. So we never did successfully execute that.
You seem like a guy who doesn't mind being drawn attention to once in a while as Santa.
I did take my full Santa red suit on a cruise one time. And if anybody's ever, taken a cruise, there's always formal night in the restaurant. And I had been sort of cutting up with the maitre d' the entire week. And then formal night was towards the end of this cruise. And I go to walk in and he stopped it in his tracks and I'm standing there in full Santa gear. And I said to him, "You did say formal, right?" And he said, "Uh-huh." And I walked straight past him and went and sat down. And the entire staff of that ship over the next hour managed to make it to my table with their cell phones taking pictures. And I'm sure those photos went to every country on the planet. I mean, it was just amazing.
And actually, they're fun, too, because in this day and age, you can do a quick video with them and they can send it home to their family members and their children. Because often if they're on a cruise, if they have a contract and they're away for the holidays, so they said they saw Santa. I think you assisted in a marriage proposal one year. So it
seems that wherever you go, you spread joy. That
you're
is
a joy spreader.
You are. I mean,
a toy maker and a joy spreader.
And this goes back into what you were saying earlier about how you thought that this year with COVID would be slower, and I think a part of it was that a lot of Santas weren't working, but I think that this whole last year it was so much sadness and despair that people needed extra joy.
Agree. Absolutely.
And I just really love that. Forget Christianity and religion and the good, whether we, I'm a Jewish kid from, whatever, and I'm feeling joyful having talked to you today.
You probably eat cookies more in December too, right?
You would think. I'm going to start.
I'm going to make a comment on that because you talked about it earlier and I didn't get a chance to get it in, but I've had events where, we'll say I'm at a restaurant and I don't fancy myself as somebody who has a lot of knowledge on a variety of religions. I believe what I believe in it, but I don't necessarily study different religions. But I was in a restaurant one time and I was passing out candy canes to all the children who were there with their parents, and there was a table of, and I'm going to get this wrong, but dad had a yarmulke and the children were in the full
Orthodox.
I guess Orthodox.
Yeah, that's how I grew up. Yeah.
And as I'm approaching this section where they are, mom and dad are doing this. Like, do not walk over to our table. And so I skipped it, and the children looked at me like, why did he get a candy cane and I didn't? And that was one of the most difficult things I ever had to experience, because I understand the rules, but I also understand that child didn't get a gift when he saw somebody else get it, and that child doesn't know why.
I think
that was hard.
As someone who has been in that situation as a kid, I think that they very much know why, because when you're raised
candy.
I know, but the kosher and the rules and everything, I mean, I think they were more looking out of fascination, because
a 5-year-old knows that they can't have a candy cane from a man.
It's hard. I was one time in the mall at Christmas time, and I went and I ran off to go see Santa or whatever, and I got lost, and a bunch of ladies had to return me to my parents, and I was always getting lost as a kid. Yeah, it can be hard. I mean, I think that there's, you raise your children a certain way, and you're within a religion and whatever it isn't. Like I said, there's a fascination, right? We weren't allowed to say the word Santa Claus. We weren't allowed to say it. So
I don't know that they knew who I was. Only thing they knew is I was giving candy to everybody in that room but them. I seen the look on their faces, and I felt bad. I really did.
I do think, though, as we become more and more diverse in families and mixed families, that some of that's getting a little different. We have friends that practice different religions and put up a tree just because it's pretty. It makes them feel.
Yeah, like I said, it's become less about the religion and more about just spreading the love, spreading the joy, putting people in a good mood, and that's kind of what you do. Lastly, we got to wrap up here in a minute. 2 more questions for you. What's your favorite Christmas movie? Ellen wants to know because Ellen's a movie buff.
So it's probably going to be.
Well, you're taking too long for that.
Yeah.
I'm
What's
a year
your-
without a Santa Claus because I'm all about Heat Miser. I love him.
I mean,
He's the best.
The claymation stuff, all the Rudolph and the Frosty and all those. I mean, those are fantastic. But I don't really know that I can isolate one and say it's my favorite, because each Christmas movie that was done, and they're all timeless. Those that were done in the 30s and 40s, all the way up to stuff being done now, with the exception of Billy Bob Thornton and the Bad Santa stuff. Those I exclude as a Christmas movie. But for those that are made with the intent of being positive and not just a comedy, they all give the same but different message, or they all give the same message a different way. So I appreciate all of them for what they are. So I can't say that there's necessarily one that I like over another. I mean, I would probably say that Rudolph is probably my favorite, and it truly is. I play off the character of Rudolph a lot. In fact, we just recently purchased a lower level, reindeer costume that we had someone wear at an event this year, and it was kind of fun, And I like the character, so that's probably going to be my favorite. But it's not because I really appreciate the movie any more than in the others. It's that specific character that I build into my brand.
Wow. Lastly, before we wrap up here, I always ask everybody if you have advice for somebody after listening to this episode and they go, you know what, I want to be a professional Santa. What advice would you give to anyone listening that wants to be a future Santa?
Do your homework. There is an underground that exists worldwide of professional Santas, and we exchange ideas, comments, positive and negative feedback. We help each other be better at what we do. The International Brotherhood of Real Graded Santas, you can Google that. It exists. Like I said, we're members, and there are many, many sub-chapters of that all over the world. And I have friends, that I've met through that I'm going to be friends with for the rest of my life. Even if I didn't continue to do this, I think I would still be friends with these people, because that when someone chooses to do what we do, you have to be genuine. You really do. You can't be, I hate to say this, but there's no bullshit artist out there who's doing what we do. If you're not sincere and you're not true and honest to what you believe, you can't do this. And those are the people that I've met, and those are the people who are going to be my lifetime friends.
I love that. And what about you, Mrs. Claus?
Actually, I like the do your homework. I think that makes sense. Of how do you dry clean your suit? How do you get your hair without chemical burns? How do you not lose your beard? How do you make your teeth not shiny, glowing in pictures? I mean,
I really love that. I think that you're very, very whimsical and magical, and you're very practical. You see the kid who has like the suntan, you are at the pool, and you're much more, and you guys really have an amazing, you balance each other out. It's been such a pleasure talking to both of you today. I think that next year I'm going to celebrate Christmas one way or another, because why not?
Well, you started on the beard, so again, do you have a future in being a Santa Claus?
Maybe.
Think we should hear his
Maybe in a couple years and a couple more pounds, I'm gonna be Santa coming up.
That's an excuse to eat cookies.
I'll tell you one quick thought real quick. I mentioned earlier the Northern Lights Santa Academy. It is owned by Santa Rick Rosenthal.
Okay.
Rosenthal.
Jewish.
Yeah,
everything. It always comes down to the Jews.
He's a fantastic Santa.
Best storyteller ever.
I would say, I think he told me he's been doing it for
40 years?
40 years, somewhere in the 40-year range, and he is phenomenal. A fantastic educator. You can't stand in a room with the man and not learn something from him, and he's Jewish.
Amazing. Look at that.
It's not about religion, it's about who you are.
I mean, Jesus was Jewish too, so
True.
we're all human. We're all human. We're all the same.
Why don't you guys kill him, by the way?
And with that, on that note, we are out of time. Thank you so much for being here, Santa, Mrs. Claus. Have a very safe trip back to the North Pole. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate you guys coming out today. I wish you all a magical, Christmas and life and everything that you guys do in the future. Keep spreading the joy. Keep on making kids' dreams come true and make them, nonstop believing, because it's a really cruel world out there. And if you can spread joy and make people happy, that is just the greatest gift of all. And again, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of It's My Job to Know Yours. My name is Red Younger. Follow me on Instagram. Follow us on Insta, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, wherever we are. You know how to find us, Spotify, all the streaming platforms. I always appreciate your comments, subscriptions, feedback, and it's been a pleasure, and I will see you all on the next one. Thank you.
Ho, ho, ho. Merry Christmas. Santa loves you.
Well, I just did my job, so now it's time for you to do your job, which is to hit that subscribe button. Because if you don't do your job, I'm gonna lose my job, and let's face it, I'm qualified for nothing.